Hello, everybody. As we're getting warmed up for our Streamline Your Websites and Mobile Apps Compliance with our CMP webinar, we'll be waiting for a couple more minutes for more attendees to join us. In the meantime, as a little icebreaker, where's everybody from? Let us know in the chat. Just post your country there if you want, so we can customize the webinar a little bit to your needs, depending on where you're from, which privacy legislation applies to you. It'd be interesting to know. Welcome, welcome. Switzerland, the land of chocolate, has one attendee puts it. Very nice, very good. We get a lot of questions around the Swiss privacy legislation. It's very interesting, very different from the GDPR in some aspects. We'll give ourselves and prospect attendees another couple of minutes here as we get settled in. The recording that we're doing currently for this webinar will be automatically shared with you via email once the webinar is over. And of course, we can include a link to the presentation as well. Right, let's give ourselves one more minute before we dive in. Okay, I think 3 minutes is enough. Let's dive in. Let's not keep you guys waiting. A bunch of more people have joined in the meantime. Thank you for being here with us. All right, so welcome to our live webinar on streamlining your website and mobile apps compliance with our product, the Usercentrics CMP. If you have any questions, and some people already made use of that functionality, if you have any questions, we'll get to them for sure. Let's just collect them in the Q&A section of Zoom. Just post them there, and we will address them after the webinar. So we will get to the most important ones and make sure we have an answer for you there. Let me introduce myself and my co-host to you guys. My name is Julian. I'm a product manager at Usercentrics, take care of the customer experience. Yeah. And my co-host here is Sasha Bryan. He's a customer success executive at Usercentrics, and he is our implementation specialist. That will become very important if we look at the agenda. So I'll be covering the first half of this webinar. I'll give a brief intro to the digital privacy landscape and I'll touch high level on our product, the Usercentrics Web and Apps CMP and its benefits. And then we'll get into an exciting part of this webinar in which our implementation specialist, Sasha, will implement live on air for you Usercentrics CMP on a test website, so you can see how you can get there, get over that particular hump. And then afterwards, we will take a look at all the questions that have accumulated throughout the webinar and see that we have some answers for you. So this is the agenda for today. And we'll start right off with this map, right? So you might ask yourself, why do I need a content management platform for my website or for my app to begin with? Like, what does that have to do with me? Why should I be interested in that, right? And this map tells that story quite aptly, I think. So independently of where you operate from, if you're serving target markets in, for example, Europe or the US, you need to comply with local data privacy laws and regulations, right? So there are already plenty of such regulations, as you can see. They have all kinds of fancy acronyms on this map, and they are only becoming greater in number, and more refined and more detailed in character, worldwide, that is. So the message here is this is an ongoing trend, which is expanding, not contracting. Data privacy regulations are here to stay. They are the new normal, and part of doing business online or having an online presence, and they are only becoming more plentiful, right? So this map captures, this is a snapshot, it's reflecting current and pending privacy regulations. The most famous ones that you might have heard of are the GDPR in Europe and the CCPA in the US. But you can also see the DMA mentioned here, which is the Digital Markets Act, which is one of the newer ones, which designates gatekeeper status to big tech companies, basically. So that takes effect in March of 2024. And that is an example for a pending privacy regulation that's about to come into effect. The takeaway message from this slide is look at the dark blue portions of it and realize how much that is on that map, and how little light gray areas there are. And just imagine how in the future, if this process continues to happen, this roadmap will slowly fill up with these privacy legislation that you need to conform to, basically. So this is why you should start to care about this if you do not care about it deeply. This is absolutely a problem to solve for. If you have an online presence, you need to achieve compliance. So now that we've looked at this map and all the data privacy regulations that you want to adhere to, or that you might have to adhere to, let's talk big picture about the challenges that stand in your way, right? So there's an infrastructure challenge. You want a solution that makes you compliant without dedicating a lot of your scarce internal resources to that solution, right? There's another challenge for you, the data challenge, because of course you want to increase the data flow and make sure your revenue streams from advertisement, for instance, are secured and protected. And then there's the user trust challenge. And this one's about securing your users' trust and avoiding fines and punitive action for not being compliant. So the good news here is that we are here to help you tackle all of these three challenges with our product as a company. So allow us to reduce complexity for you while enabling you to increase data flow and secure user trust. We want to be a partner in tackling these challenges. This is a classic breakdown of the principles of GDPR. Let's just go over this as a more detailed dive into one of the more restrictive privacy regulations, one of the most often applied ones. These are 7 criteria for valid consent within the GDPR framework. So consent must be freely given. It must be a choice. This means access to services or functionalities should not be contingent on the user granting consent. It's about ensuring real freedom of choice for the user. And these privacy walls, which blocked content based on providing consent, used to be a big problem. Consent must be an informed decision. You should know what you're consenting to. There needs to be transparency around the purposes. It needs to be granular. It has to be a granular approach. So consent needs specificity. It's not enough to have a blanket consent for all data processing activities. Consent should be obtained for each distinct processing purpose individually. And of course, with the Usercentrics CMP, you can use our 3 default categories in which you can put data processing services and also customize those categories or add new ones to your liking, right? So we support you in the granular approach of collecting consent through our product. Consent has to be an explicit action, so no guessing games here. Consent must be expressed through a clear action, such as a click of a button or filling out a form or flipping a toggle, something like this. Implied consent, like pre-ticked boxes or an activity that assumes consent, doesn't count. It needs to be explicit. Consent for non-essential services has to be given in advance. Technologies or cookies that rely on consent should only be activated after receiving consent, not before. This adheres to the principle of privacy by default. It's a tentpole of the GDPR framework. Consent must be easy to withdraw. So if you change your mind, for instance, just as easy as you say yes, you have to be able to say no. So users must be able to withdraw their consent with the same ease as they gave it at any time. They can do that with our product. And consent must be well documented. So we provide access to scan reports and consent logs to keep track of when the consent was obtained and what was consented to. So with our product, within the most restrictive legislation, the GDPR, we check all these boxes and enable you to be compliant across all of these 7 criteria for valid consent. Now that we've covered some general ground around data privacy legislation and how Usercentrics can help you tackle the challenges which arise from that, let's dive into more detail with our product and some of its features. Let's look at Usercentrics web and mobile consent management platform in a little bit more in detail. I apologize, there's a lot of text here, but you don't have to read it. So you can best understand our product as a multi-device consent management platform. We can help you capture and manage consent across several platforms. So if you have a website or a mobile version of that website or a native app for iOS or for Android, or if you're building software for smart TVs, you can use us to collect consent across all these platforms. Some of the features of our product which will allow you to solve for cross-platform related problems are cross-device consent sharing, multi-configuration bulk editing of CMPs, and intricate geo-targeting options for global compliance. You can access these features through one interface. You can, for example, use our DPS scanner to discover technologies on your website or in your app, and also test your CMP's performance in A/B experiments and look at analytics. I'll go into more detail regarding our analytics and the DPS scanner on the next couple of slides as well. Our solution is comprehensive and scalable. We feature over 2,200 legal templates curated by our legal department. This is something where we stand out. This is one of our strong suits, absolutely. This library of legal templates of data processing services. We offer plug-and-play UI customization and configuration. And we support Google Consent Mode, even the latest iteration of Google Consent Mode that was released just a couple of days ago. Right. So one of the things that if you ask existing customers, hey, what's great about Usercentrics, that is not around the core product is always the outstanding support and service and aftercare that we provide. So we have a really well-made documentation that will allow you to solve for very detailed and complex use cases. We offer customer success manager access, such as Sasha here, if you're a premium customer, right? And of course, general customer support in the form of a ticketing system for ongoing needs and questions. The support and service in general are a strong suit of ours, and I want to highlight that here before we dive into actual features. But let's get into the product a little bit. Still on slides, and then we will move over to the implementation part. So let's talk a little bit about one of the most important parts of our product. This is the part that allows you to discover, add, and manage data processing services. We refer to this as the DPS scanner. Let me highlight some tentpole problems that you can solve here. So usually the first question that comes up when you're at the beginning of any CMP implementation, so once you've realized, okay, I need a CMP, I want to be serving this market, and they have data privacy legislation that I need to comply with, I need a CMP, right? The question is like, which data processing services is my website actually running, or my app? What do I have on there? And how should I categorize them on the CMP, right? So with the help of this tool, you can solve for that problem quite handily. So with the DPS scanner, you can discover which data processing services are used on your website or app. And it's not just for initial discovery where you run a scan, but it's also good for constant monitoring once you are implemented. We keep monitoring if anything changes on your website or app, and keep you updated through this list, so you know if anything has changed that you need to add to your CMP and have your user consent to it, right? We also have an auto categorization feature that solves the problem of, hey, okay, now I have a DPS, but which category does it fit into? Like, where should I put it? So based on the insights from our legal department, we suggest a category for most DPS in our database after scanning. So you can alter this, you are in full control, but we suggest a category to you based on our experience where it fits best, right? So discovery, adding, and managing is an important topic for having a CMP implementation that is compliant. And this vast library of predefined DPS, which is curated and kept up to date by our legal department, does a lot of heavy lifting there for you. The cool thing about this is if you go with our predefined DPS, of which, again, we have over 2,000, there's an auto update feature, which will make sure you receive these updates as we feed them into the system, right? So if you add, for instance, Google Ads or Google Ad Services as a DPS, and our legal department updates this service, as long as you have the auto update enabled for that service, you don't have to care about updating that particular service. We're going to do that for you, right? It covers the discover, add, manage data processing portion. Another really tentpole problem to solve for is corporate design, right? Whatever you put in front of your users, you want it to match the look and feel of your website or of your app, right? So once you've discovered DPS and added them to your CMP and categorized them with the help of our auto categorization feature, the next question you'll find yourself wondering about is, how do I make my user-centric CMP look like my website or look like my app, right? I need it to match my corporate design. And I'm just here to tell you that we have a very high degree of customizability out of the box through this interface. It can even be enhanced through custom CSS and or SDK if you're a premium customer, right? That puts all the power in your hands and you can make this look however you want, right? We feature support for auto translation into over 60 languages, right? So you can achieve that worldwide compliance and target specific geolocations. And of course, you can do other stuff like choosing between a banner or a wall design, yada, yada, yada. We are highly flexible. The user-centric CMP is highly flexible in terms of customizability. You can do a lot there and make it look and feel just the way you want. Another thing that we are best in class in is the ability to analyze the performance of the CMP once it's implemented, right? So after having configured and implemented your CMP, you can measure its performance. You can, answer questions such as, what's the interaction rate my users are exhibiting in relation to the CMP that they are seeing? Do they engage in it? Do they ignore it? What's the accept rate? That's the distribution of accept all versus deny all choices users are making. What's the percentage of users who are accepting everything versus how many are denying everything? What percentage of users are opting for a granular content choice? And how does my CMP perform across countries? How are users from India interacting with the CMP? How are users from Germany interacting with it? How is that different? Is there maybe a steep difference that would, be in favor of maybe having a custom CMP for India? maybe one that looks different than the one that they're seeing right now. You can run A/B experiments, to test your hypothesis there and actually get in the product A/B analytics as well. You can answer questions such as how does your banner perform across devices, or platforms, right? So how does it perform for tablet users or for mobile users versus desktop, right? And in the end, if you want to go really deep and granular, you can look at the opt-in rate and granular analytics of any given data processing service. So that's a brief theoretical overview of the features that we're offering and what kind of problems you can solve with them. And there's a little palette cleanser before we move over to the practical part of this webinar, where we get to see the implementation of our CMP on a test website. We have a little poll prepared for you. If you want to answer that, be interested in the outcome here. So the two questions are: do you already have a Usercentrics account? Yes or no? Have you signed up already? And the other question comes with a little bit more choice. What is the most difficult part of setting up the Usercentrics CMP? Is it the customization, or adding data processing services, implementing the CMP script, which is what we're going to see in a bit, or adjusting the script of the data processing services, or other? Let us know what you think. All right, thank you very much for your participation in the polls. We are going to move over to the implementation part of this webinar. And for that, I'm going to hand the mic to our implementation expert, Sasha, and I'm going to unshare my screen for the time being.
Hello, I will share my screen now, and we'll go through a little bit of a small implementation part here. So in this case, we have the Usercentrics CMP. We're implementing the browser UI, is what we call the web CMP. Here in the documentation, you can find all our features. And the part we're interested in today is the implementation. So the browser UI is what we're implementing. In this case, we're going to do it first with a script tag. And as a second step, we'll also adjust some scripts that we have of technologies through the Google Tag Manager and also directly in the code. So the first part, we have our Usercentrics CMP that we're in the admin interface here. And we have some data processing services added at this point. It's going to be the Google Tag Manager, Facebook Pixel as a technology, YouTube Video, and generally you could add these through the DPS scanner as Jules mentioned, or you can go in a second step and also manually search our database. So we'll do this in this case for Google Maps, because it's also a service we're going to work with. In today's example setup, we would put this in the functional category, and we select that keep this automatically updated. That means our legal team will procure service updates, and you would automatically benefit from these. if you would like to stay on the current version and only update once you decide, it's also possible here. But in this case, we're just going with automatic. Then we have all the services added to the CMP that we would like. If there's some for you personally that you need to look in the database for, you can find more. And if there's a service not covered in our database of over 2,000 services, as Julian mentioned, you can create a custom DPS. It's also possible here. If it's a technology maybe you're only using on your website, this can make sense. In that point, we would publish it. And we can also use the preview functionality to take a look at what the CMP at this point would look like. We've adjusted the design a little bit with colors and the logo. We have the deny button and the accept button, which is a common setup. And in this case, a more information link. Here we have categories, standard ones, marketing, functional, essential. Essential is always opted in for. In this category, we have the Usercentrics CMP. For functional, it's always based on an opt-in under GDPR. So we have Google Maps, Google Tag Manager, and YouTube video in this case. And under marketing, we put Facebook Pixel. Under services, you can get even more details on this. And that's basically the setup of the CMP in this case. And we're collecting consent, so it serves as a gatekeeper before we're actually activating services on the website. So as the first part of the actual implementation, we would go into the implementation part of the CMP, configurations, admin interface, and select our code. In this case, we're looking at an example web page here. We have, on this page, we have visibly YouTube video and Google Maps. And also running on this page is several other services. So if we look into the developer tools, we can take a quick look here. We'll see the Google Tag Manager is implemented. So GTM.js generally indicates this. Then we have Facebook events. That's Facebook Pixel. And these are the services we're going to tackle first. So this is our source code of the website in that case. And the first part is simply to copy and paste the script we just copied. So here we want to put in our CMP script, and we'll save it and go back to our test page. And at that point, we have the CMP implemented. As you can follow through on the documentation, there's various ways to do this, but the simplest is always to just copy and paste your script tag and implement that way. At this point, we're not actively blocking any technologies yet on the web page. So if we go back into the developer tools and reload the page, looking for JavaScript, we would still find, for example, the Google Tag Manager and also Facebook events firing without consent. So that's what we want to change now. We want to have, for example, the Google Tag Manager only fire when there's consent. And we do that with the script adjustment. This is documented in step 2 of the implementation process. And it's a guide for scripts directly integrated into your website. In this case, it's fairly simple. We're going to look for the Google Tag Manager script and then make 2 adjustments to it. One will be that we're going to change the type of it. Normally, it will be JavaScript, but we want it to change to text plain. This means the browser will view it as text and not run it as a script, which kind of blocks the technology initially before there's consent. And to tell the CMP which technology we're looking for here, It's Google Tag Manager in this case. So we always need to have the exact name of the technology to make this adjustment. We can find that in either the admin interface where the technologies are listed under data processing services, or directly in the CMP under services, see the exact name. Here, for this one, it's Google Tag Manager, and this is the first script we're going to adjust. It's already labeled here, Google Tag Manager, opening script tag. We'll add a type, which will be text plain. And in this editor, you can see the color is also changing because it's no longer going to be handled as JavaScript by the browser. Then the next part is the data Usercentrics attribute. And this has to contain the exact name of the technology as it's added to the CMP. And we'll save that. And we'll go back to our test website. We'll open the developer tools and do a quick reload. Now, because we just did the script, we should no longer see GTM firing. So GTM.js is what we can search for. And it's no longer firing until there's consent. So that would be the first step of the implementation. And then, as mentioned, we also have a service in the Google Tag Manager, which is Facebook Pixel. So here we would go back to the documentation. This first part we've done for our script. So in this case, we adjusted Google Tag Manager. And we can go back one step. And under Adjust Your Implemented Scripts, there's also an option to see the documentation for Google Tag Manager. In this case, the first step is, of course, always to create your tag. This can vary from technology to technology, how you add it. It can be a template in Google Tag Manager, or maybe custom HTML. For our example today, we're using a custom HTML tag, but this does not matter too much for the triggering, as we're going to create a variable and then also a trigger. So right now, the status quo we have in the Google Tag Manager is that we have a Facebook Pixel tag, and this is firing on all pages. And basically, we want to change this to only have it fire when there's consent. So what we do as a first step, as documented, we create this data layer variable. You can see an example here for Google Analytics. And we also, in this tag manager container, we have an example for Facebook Pixel. So this is what you would create, the data layer variable. And then we also need to create that Facebook Pixel trigger. So the trigger is Facebook Pixel trigger in this case. It's a custom event. The event name is always constant status. And we use regex matching. And with this trigger, we want to wait until the Facebook Pixel variable is true. So by default, we're setting it to false. That means we don't want to trigger Facebook Pixel by default. And then we wait for the CMP to essentially tell the Google Tag Manager through the data layer that there's consent for Facebook Pixel. And at that point, the Google Tag Manager can fire it. So once we have our variable, as mentioned, and the trigger created as documented. So in the documentation, the example is Google Analytics 4, but that Google Analytics 4 can be any technology you have in your CMP. You just have to match the name to the variable. So the final step is to add that trigger to the tag. So instead of firing it on all pages, we will edit this trigger. Add a different one. I'm going to use the Facebook Pixel trigger. and save. Then we need to publish our changes. We'll go back to our test page. And once we've given consent, we should see Facebook Pixel and Google Tag Manager firing, because these are the technologies we have that require an opt-in that we've just adjusted. So we have Facebook Pixel here and Google Tag Manager, and we're going to do an accept all. And then as you can see, Google Tag Manager fires, and through the Google Tag Manager, we're going to have Facebook Pixel firing. So that would be this portion of the implementation, and this is usually the extent you need to take in order to go live with your first CMP configuration. But if you have, for example, YouTube video or Google Maps, we have an additional feature that's called the Smart Data Protector, which is an auto blocking tool that you can also use, for example, on this test web page. So for that, we would go back to our documentation, go to Web CMP version 2, which is what we're implementing here, and the features, and then go to Smart Data Protector, which is this tool where you can block certain technologies that are supported by it. Lots of them have a visual component. You can view all the supporting technologies in the documentation. So the list is quite long. And lucky for us, YouTube and Google Maps is on the list. So here under installation, we can find the ways to implement this extra script, basically. And it's even given as a complete code. So we can simply go in here, copy and paste up to this part where we're implementing the Usercentrics CMP and also the Smart Data Protector. So in our code, we could paste this. Then what we need from the original script tag that we had for the Usercentrics CMP is the setting ID. Copy that, paste it into this one we copy and pasted just now. And then we can save. So to illustrate what the Smart Data Protector will do, we're going to deny consent and then reload the page, because we would not have consent at this point. And on the reload, we would not want to have YouTube and Google Maps showing up. So instead of actually showing the technologies, so the actual YouTube video or the Google Maps map, you would instead get an overlay like this, which can also be customized. That's all documented in the Smart Data Protector documentation. So you can customize, for example, the buttons, how they should look in color, and even the text is possible. And once we accept here, we can also, of course, look at more information first. This would take us straight to the service in the CMP, or we can accept through this. And at that point, the video would be free because there would be consent for YouTube video. And the same can be done for maps. So that concludes the direct implementation part of this webinar. And in the next final step, we just wanted to show you it's also possible to implement the Usercentrics CMP through the Google Tag Manager directly. So not just tags in there, you can also implement the Usercentrics CMP itself in the Google Tag Manager. So for this, you would again go to the implementation part. And instead of integrating the JavaScript directly, we will go to the guide for the Google Tag Manager template. So here, it's all outlined in detail, how to set that up. And in the Google Tag Manager, it's a very simple process. You would go to your workspace, go under tags, then you select new, configure the tag. Here you need to discover more tags in the community template gallery. And there you can search for Usercentrics. Choose this template. Then it's added in there. What you need to adjust is the setting ID in case you're using a geo rule set. So this encompasses multiple configurations and delivers them based on the location of the end user. It's also an option with our CMP. You can also use that here, but in this case, it would just be the setting ID, which again, you can get from the admin interface. It's always at the top here. So you'd plug that in. Then if it's a TCF CMP, that would be relevant for you to opt in or select this. And you can decide if you want to enable Google Consent Mode, for example. There's a few more settings, but in the end, you just need to add the triggering, which you would do on content initialization here for all pages. And usually you would give it a name. So UC tag could be the name. And this would implement the Usercentrics CMP through the Google Tag Manager. If you do decide to go this route, it's important that you need to consider the Google Tag Manager an essential service for your website in order to have it firing basically at the beginning. And the adjustment of the script tag that we did on the Google Tag Manager here would not be done in that case, because you want the technology active in order to provide the essential service that is the CMP and put it on the website. And with that, we're going to conclude the implementation part of this webinar, and I will hand over to Jules.
Nice, thank you very much. I hope you guys got a really good look at how in detail a direct implementation with our script tag, which you can retrieve from the admin interface, is done, as well as one that leverages a tag management system such as the Google Tag Manager. You can also use different tag management systems, of course, but the Google Tag Manager is a crowd favorite, really. It's often used. Now, that concludes the product demo. And we have time for some Q&A. Sasha, what I would suggest, I can take the first couple of questions. I already had the time to look a little bit at the Q&A section here. And maybe you also browse a little bit, because there's some implementation related questions that you might be better at answering than I am. So one of the questions that has been asked and already answered is, how does the A/B test feature work? Can one use configurations as test cases, or does it compare specific changes within one configuration? We can't get into detail, but I can tell you this much. If you activate the A/B testing feature, you will be presented with an input form where you can, in JSON format, define variants of your CMP. And so you will be testing specific changes to a base CMP, yeah, and then the A/B tests will be rolled out. So if you define one variant, it will be rolled out 50-50 your original CMP, and the changes to the original CMP as presented by you to the system in variant 1. If you define 2 variants, it's going to be 33% across all, right? Original, variant 1, variant 2. This is how it works logistically. And you basically define what the variant should look like differently than the base CMP, right? So this is how it works. If you're interested in increasing your CMP's performance, though, I can give you a hot tip. We have a really good white paper on CMP optimization, and the strategies and tactics that are outlined in this white paper will get you extremely far. So my tip for you before you venture off into any A/B testing endeavors would be to look at this white paper and see how far you can get with the insights from that in terms of getting the performance of your CMP to the level that you're aspiring to. You will be able to go very, very, very far, right? So that's just as a little pitch for our CMP optimization white paper right here. Another question that's come up is, can one erase configurations that one created as a test? Yes, you can. You can create configs and you can delete them. That is not a problem. One question hints at a premium feature of ours. So the question is, can one copy entire configurations in case one only wants to alter a small aspect of the new configuration? The answer is yes, but with a premium feature. So we have a bulk editing feature, which allows you to take any settings from one configuration and basically batch save them to another configuration. And this is basically duplicating it. So you create a new configuration, then you batch save the information from the other CMP, and then you make your small changes. For instance, if you want just a tiny bit of difference between, let's say, Austria and Germany, for instance. This could be one strategy and one feature which you can leverage to quickly have minorly different CMP. A second one. Another question that's in there is it possible to use a custom DPS or any other method with Usercentrics to allow users to accept terms and conditions? So I can tell you this. So when I'm terms and conditions, I'm thinking website terms and conditions or business terms and conditions, stuff like this. The DPS, the custom DPS, so you can create DPS, but they're more geared towards managing consent for technologies that might store cookies, for instance, or transfer data. The type of terms and conditions accepting and displaying that you're likely looking for, I would actually use our preference management product for that. This is something that we're currently in beta with and acquiring first customers. If you're interested in that, get in touch and I'll put you through to the responsible product manager, Alexei, and he can run you through what this product can do for you. It's happening in the same interface as the content management platform, right? So short answer, is it possible to use a custom DPS to manage terms and conditions, accept and deny, or preferences? I wouldn't do that. That's not really conducive. But we have a solution for you that might interest you there, because we're looking to branch off there and solve for that problem as well. So those were the Q&A questions. We have maybe something else in the chat. Let me look. We'll have to distribute a link to the CMP optimization white paper for sure. This recording will be sent to all of those who signed up to this webinar. Thank you very much for posting the white paper on optimization already. The A/B testing feature should be available for the mobile app as well.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I will share a link.
it is possible to fully implement the Usercentrics CMP via the Google Tag Manager, also other tag management systems such as that from Adobe. There's one question that I'm not sure how to tackle. Shouldn't cookie scripts run and get decision before you even allow the Google Tag Manager script to run? Requesting Google script already exposes user data to a third party, or is it counted as essential? Are there any insights from like the front lines in terms of how our customers tackle this particular dilemma on your side, Sasha? Is there anything you can share?
Always a legal question, of course. And on one hand, you have a case to make it essential. For example, if you're saying the Usercentrics CMP is delivered through the Google Tag Manager, and at that point, you need the Google Tag Manager in order to deliver an essential service. So that could be one case. Of course, we do not give legal advice, but that can be one argument, and we see it often done in this way to make the Google Tag Manager essential, and the Usercentrics CMP is always essential, and then the Google Tag Manager in that case is delivering the CMP. But in most of the cases, and as general best practice, we see Google Tag Manager in the functional category, and then yes, you would wait for consent until you fire the Google Tag Manager.
Interesting. Thank you very much. I think we churned through all the questions from the Q&A portion and from the chat. We copy pasted and shared some links for you guys to a white paper and the A/B testing for mobile documentation.
You covered the question about entire configurations, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The bulk editing feature was mentioned here.
Correct.
And I think if there are no further questions from you guys, I think we're ready to wrap this up. You can reach us via our email addresses. And of course, the recording of this webinar will be distributed to all who signed up. Right, so thank you for attending. Thank you for being part of this. And have a good Wednesday. And
have a great day.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.